gonna start the video off like this, right? How to lab. I was asked here by someone here in chat, Rupture EX, you know, kind of curious my process on how I lab, right? Or being a lab rat, right? Whatever, right? Or guy on a quest for knowledge for the game. That's me, right? I'm one of the big dogs. First thing is first, because the thing is, this applies to all fighting games. So how to lab properly. First and foremost, right? You need to understand the general things, right? Like, what are you going into lab to learn? What are you trying to learn? How to anti-air? Then you practice against jumps, right? You can record the dummy jumping with a normal and then practice it from different ranges, do a bunch of different things, right? But that's a very simple thing to practice, right? How to anti-air would be one, right? Very common thing in fighting games, how to safe jump. And as an addendum to that, meaty safe jump. Meaty safe jump means that you'll beat both them pressing a button and stopping the uppercut and being able to land and block at the same time, right? So you get both, right? But then the other part of it is, or is it just a regular safe jump? Which basically means you can't hit them. You're just baiting the uppercut, which leaves you vulnerable to throws. Meaty safe jump keeps you safe from throw, right? Regular safe jump does not keep you safe from throw because it's a meaty, right? So these are questions you end up asking, right? And then other things you can ask yourself is how to counter poke. So you set the dummy to neutral jump, right? And then swing the normal that you want to practice counter poking, you know, with all your characters. So the character you want to play the most, and kind of just go through their normals and see how to do that. Right? Then you can check special moves. Again, you always want to set the dummy to neutral jump first so you can practice moving back and forward instead of just standing idle. A lot of times people tend to do this technique where they record the dummy neutral jumping, as I mentioned before, and they stand in place. You want to practice moving around and get used to doing that so that you can essentially just get used to moving around while looking to counter poke, because you're not standing still when you're playing the game normally, right? So why would you stand still practicing against a dummy, right? So you get into the habit of that. Again, these are all asking questions. It's all asking yourself questions. You know, so from how to anti-air, how to safe jump, meaty safe jump or not, how to counter poke. There's also, what are your mix-ups? Right? But instead of saying what are your mix-ups, right, you should say what are your post-hit. This is very important. Post-hit mix-ups, right? Because you have to hit the enemy first to get to the mix-up portion, right? Again, you're gonna keep asking yourself these questions. What do you do? After you hit them, what do you get? Right? And then the next question is there even a mix-up after my combo? Another addendum. Do I need to shorten the combo for the KD being knocked down to gain a mix-up situation? Question mark. So you might have to sacrifice damage, right? So I'm gonna move this out, right? Coming into it again. Damage over, hold on. Damage over Oki or Oki over damage? Question mark. More questions. How should I structure my pressure? Right? You see what I'm saying? You see how I'm constantly just adding to this? So when you go into the training room, you can just keep these, you can keep a general list of things to look for, right? And all of these things are all in fighting games. This isn't just centric to Grand Blue Fantasy Versus at all. This is all fighting games, as long as they have a jump, right? So if it's a 2D fighting game, then yes, all this is there. But if this was a 3D fighter, then you would just move from, you know, how to safe jump to meaty situations or Oki. So you can take out safe jump, right? You can remove this out of the 3D, right? can omit this in 3D fighters. So anything that's regarding safe jump, you can just omit that for a 3D fighter, right? Just leave that alone. Then go back to the other things, how to counter post hit mix-ups, right? After your combos, right? Same thing again, damage over Oki over damage. How should you structure your pressure? You know, what's plus on block? You know, you would check these things. You would check what's plus on block. How, and then, you know, I guess on top of that, how negative on block. And this is attributed to is your moves as your character and your opponent's character. So add an addendum to that. Check the values for both your character and the dummy / enemy character, right? And I'm gonna add something to this, right? As you improve, you won't really need to.
Come on, what's up, fam? How you doing? Never forget about that, because that's all we got.
As you improve, you won't really need to worry as much about your frame data because you practice and know it by now. I mean, you should, to be honest. LOL. You should know this, right? Oki is mix-ups. Oki is meaty pressure, left, right. Oki can be attributed to a meaty, basically a move that the opponent has to deal with when they wake up. A mix-up situation where they have to guess. Like all of that's like attributed to Okizeme, right? Or we could just say the knockdown game. So from that point, this just gets easier. As long as you're asking yourself these questions or you have this kind of checklist ready as you're practicing, this gets easier to do lab work. Other things you can do, combo drills, right? It's a combo drills. Obviously do these. Make sure you can land them on both sides. P1 / P2. Obviously make sure you want to practice your combos, get used to it. Make sure you're comfortable. You can get into more defensive training, right? So let's add this here. Defensive training. How to defend against the enemy dummy. Yes, you will need to learn the other character just enough to practice against their options. I'm gonna add to this. Will not be needed in Tekken 8. Do Tekken 8 at Tekken 8 / Under Night, due to the take over mechanic for replays. So if you're not familiar with this, basically when Tekken 8 comes out and Under Night 2 drops, they're making it so that when you watch your replays, you can retake over your character and see where you got hit and find answers. So it makes it easier to do lab work. You see what I'm saying? Then that's another thing that would be good to help out players, because a lot of people don't watch the replays enough. Like me, I don't watch my replays all the time, but instead, like, I take note of what hit me and I can go back into the training room and replay it. I guess it's not because I don't like watching my own replays, it's because I'm just so used to going back and seeing what killed me in particular and then labbing against it. So that's what I tend to do, which is the very first option, the defensive training, defending against the enemy dummy, right? This defensive training thing applies to Grand Blue Fantasy versus every other game that does not have the takeover mechanic for the replay feature, okay? So the other things you can do for defensive training. I guess that comes back to knowing the negative frames, you know, checking the enemy offensive options. Are they, let me come back down here. Are they safe on block? Are they negative enough to take your turn back? Question mark. Could this potentially be a spacing trap by the enemy character? You want to test that too, so you know where your options are, you know what their options are, so you're more informed. This is a big, so this right here in itself is a reason why a lot of players just full steam ahead, W key everything, and don't think, because they don't worry about this here. These things that I'm showing you here, they don't lab against this. They just go W key, mix ups, complaining about why they lose because they have next to no defensive mentality. They don't practice against the things that kill them. They just figure, I'm just gonna butt my head even harder by going forward. If I go forward harder, I'll beat them. And that's not always the case. Now, I get it, maybe to some people, and I've seen this before, where they say, you know, Kensou, a lot of times, you know, where you're thinking is like way far ahead. Maybe it's too advanced for the average person. That's not necessarily the case. I think people just don't acknowledge these things. So I think if people are like myself are constantly telling you guys in videos and streams, these are the things you need to worry about as a player, it'll help you get better. Not to mention, to keep this in mind, this isn't all these things I'm showing you guys in terms of how to lab and how I go about it too. These are things to make yourself better. This isn't just about you playing in tournament or playing in competition. It's just you being more informed about what's happening. Now, this helps you know your own information, and this is your own research. I understand this is video games, and doing research in video games isn't always fun. I understand that. However, if you do take the time to do these things, right? And this is just a note, right? If you take the time to do these things, when you do go back and you play, you're more informed. You can have that much more confidence in defending against the enemy character, right? This way, when you see, say you're fighting against Gran, you know how to deal with Gran, or you're fighting in Tekken, you know how to deal with Kazuya or Jin or Nina, or you're playing Strive, you know how to deal with Soul Kai, Sin, you know, Nago. You know, the thing is, these options are never gonna be easy to come by. Sometimes it requires you to critically think. I understand sometimes lab work can be boring. So a lot of these fighting games also feature online training modes. So use online training mode with friends to make the lab work more fun. You guys can practice and do stuff together. This way it takes away from the monotony of doing it by yourself. Me, personally, I'm used to doing this by myself for so long. There are friends that I do lab with, minimal, but when it does happen, there's a lot that's learned. If you take the time out to learn these things and do it with your friends, both you and your friend can now be stronger. You know? This here, if you're fully capable, which you guys all are, you guys watch this here on YouTube, you guys here on Twitch, you're fully capable of doing all these things. I understand that it's boring, it's not as fun. I get it, you should just be playing people, I agree, but it's okay to take 30 minutes to do this. It's no different than if you're playing like Overwatch or something like that and you spend 30 minutes in like the training room just to practice your aim, or before you go out and exercise, you stretch a little bit. These are just your stretches. You know what I mean? Think of it that way. And the more you know, the better you'll end up being as a player. These are the things you just gotta do. You know, if you find it boring and you don't want to do this, that's fine. Just chill, play the game and enjoy yourself. But remember, the training room is always there for you if you want to utilize it. It's not fun when, like, you know, you get beat up, you go and complain, but you don't utilize the training. Utilize it. It's one thing that people tend to be allergic to when they play fighting games. And I get it. Again, it's not about you being a competitive player, it's just about knowing more. It'd be no different than you watching a video on something and it's like, oh, you train yourself on it, you know? When you do your job, before they make you do the job, they train you more often than not, right? They don't always just send you off to the wolves, you know? So treat it the same. It's not, don't think of it as a job, but just train yourself. You know, everyone has the capacity to do so. And again, if not, get a buddy and you guys sit down and figure it out. Without getting too much further into detail, I think this is kind of like a good checklist. You know what I mean? This is just kind of the short, rough, and sweet way of just learning how to use the training room and lab against things. You have this checklist, this will help you out. I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here and catch you guys in the next video. Y'all take care. Peace and Afro grease. And I don't even have an afro, dude. I have dreads. Whatever. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.